Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Unsung Heroes. I am Trey Stire, your host, and this is part 8 of the 2026 season, talking about the Daytona Supercross, the top underdogs and privateers of the 450 class, the 250 East class, and of course, SMX Next was back for the third time this season. I am Trey Stire, your host. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can, of course, find this show along with the Stire Sound on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, iHeart Radio, the usual spots. If you prefer the written version of the articles, treystire.wordpress.com is the place to be. But thank you for tuning in once again. Daytona, of course, one of the most anticipated rounds of the season every single year, and it delivered once again. We're going to go ahead and jump into things, starting with the 250 class, of course. And even though there's only been 2 rounds so far, it seems that we already have a big three starting to develop in terms of the privateers. Cody Schock, Colin Park, Devin Simonson. I don't think it's any surprise that Schock and Park are among this group. Cody was once again the top privateer in the class, sixth place finish at Daytona. He was around the Star Yamaha guys all night long, was up there fighting with them in the heat race. Of course, he gets fifth to help Yamaha secure a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 finish in the heat. Pretty impressive showing, which of course it helps when you have all four star guys in the show, but it was Cody's 24th career 250 Supercross top 10 in the main event. He made a start in the 450 class there last year. Of course, he was on the 250, but now Cody back in his familiar class, sixth place, a couple top 10s to begin the year, starting to build, starting to grow. Then looking back a couple spots, eighth place, Nate Thrasher sandwiched in between them. Schock did beat one of the Star Yamaha guys in the main. Eighth place was Cullen Park on the Phoenix Racing Honda. Cullen would have been ninth and crossed the finish line in ninth, but Jalik Swoll got a two-position penalty for grooming the gate. He looked like he stopped a little bit before his gate and spun the rear tire. The officials didn't like that and handed him a penalty, which promoted Park up to eighth. Looked like he was going to be ninth for 2 weeks in a row. But a solid weekend. Of course, Cullen is a Florida boy, so he was really looking forward to Daytona. And another top 10 finish. He's right up there, man. He's right on the edge and on the cusp of battling inside that top five. And with those factory guys, you just got to keep working at it. Then right behind him, ninth place, another top 10 finish, four top 10s in his last five 250 Supercross starts. Devin Simonson, another one of the Club MX Yamaha guys. And Devin is looking good. Second career main event at Daytona for Devin and a big improvement on his first. He was 16th back in 2023 when he was racing for the PRMX Kawasaki team. Devin Simonson's looking really good so far. Looked solid in World Supercross, now carrying some of that momentum and confidence into the early stages of the 250E season. Cool to see from somebody who's been a Supercross only guy the last couple years and sort of riding contract to contract, it feels like. Couple spots below this, how about Isaiah Clark? A big step for him. He's on the Storm Lake Honda Buddy Brooks Racing team for the second year in a row during Supercross. Isaiah, of course, was up front winning a lot of races in the General Tire Arena Cross Series before Supercross began. He missed the main event at Arlington by a couple spots, but what a rebound. A 12th place finish in the main event, one spot away from his career best. And man, he is a great rider at Daytona. It seems like 3 consecutive main events at the World Center of Racing for Clark. He was ripping in qualifying. He was charging. Got some time on the TV broadcast for Race Day Live. Was sending that wall into the sand. Man, Isaiah was riding really good in top 15. Also a good result for the Storm Lake Honda team considering Luke Neese missed the night show. Very rare to see Neese struggle like that. But Isaiah Clark stepping up when his team needed him most. Finishing 13th place, one spot behind his former teammate. It was Henry Miller on the MX6 Racing Kawasaki. Henry got the LCQ victory after a rough heat race. The fourth LCQ victory of his 250 career. He also has a 450 LCQ win from his time with HEP Motorsports Suzuki in the 450 class in 2018. But Henry, a couple spots better than Arlington. He gained 6 spots during the main event, so he was one of the biggest movers during the race. one of the guys making the most passes out there. A little bit of progress from Henry. And speaking of progress, a huge night, a huge step forward for Valentin Guillot, of course, the man from Switzerland, MXGP veteran, longtime competitor over there, came to America last summer for the Rock River team, of course, now known as Gizmo Racing. Yamaha qualified for the playoffs, had a fantastic summer, racing 250 East before going back to the 450 outdoors, and Valentin was a little more at home in Daytona, a little bit more outdoors, even though it was still very much a supercross track, but a little bit more of an outdoor feel. Top 20 in qualifying, then straight through into the main event. 14th once the checkered flag flew. He was really struggling in Arlington, hit the ground a couple times, I think was just struggling confidence wise. And you could really tell on social media he was disappointed and downtrodden with his first weekend of the year. But he gets it through to the main event in Daytona, crosses off another part of the bucket list. He can say now that he has officially started an AMA Supercross race, top 15 overall as well. Not too shabby for the number 39 from Motier, Switzerland. Hopefully, we will be seeing Guillot in some more main events as the season progresses. Back to the MX6 Racing team, though, they had a couple guys separated, but 13th, 15th, 17th for that team. Marshall Welton was in 15th, of course. Didn't really get to show what he was capable of at Arlington after that first start straight pile up, but he was back in the mix, and he had some drama getting into the main event. He stole that last qualifying spot, fourth place in the LCQ on the final lap. Just a couple corners to go. He railed around the outside to pass Brighton Carroll. Carroll tried to get back at the inside of the split lane to go through, but it wasn't able to work. Carroll went down, and Welton went on to the main event. 15th for Marsh, a little bit better improvement, especially after a DNF on lap 1 at Arlington. Then in 17th place, Derek Kelly, a little bit of a step back. Of course, if you listened last week, we talked to Derek, and he admitted to struggling in ruddy conditions at times in the past. He said that sometimes the East Coast tracks have come out to bite him and have hurt him a little bit in terms of speed and pace. But now that he's on the East Coast, I expect him to start figuring things out at the racing level. 17th, as I always say, a bad main event better than a good night of not qualifying. Still a few points on the board. And sandwiched between Welton and Derek Kelly, shout out to one of the EBR Performance Yamaha riders, Landon Hartz from Wilsonville, Alabama. The teenager just turned pro at Arlington, and in his second professional attempt, Landon qualified for his first career main event. Great ride in the LCQ, got up front, led some laps. Henry Miller ended up getting by for the LCQ victory. But nonetheless, Landon got a spot on the gate, and he finished 16th overall. A pretty solid debut, and Daytona is a really special place to make his first career main event. Very cool to see the number 492 in the main. Always like to see some of these graduates from SMX Next. Of course, Caden Dudney at Arlington running for the Star Yamaha team accomplished that feat. There are a couple other guys in the 250 East series that could be accomplishing this feat, going from SMX Next to main event competitor. But Landon did it at Daytona. Didn't surprise me one bit. I saw his speed last year, and I knew from Arlington watching him, I'm like, this guy is going to be in the main event very, very soon. And it happens at race number 2 of his professional career. Congratulations to Landon and to the EBR team for heading back into the main event. Now to your final 4 privateers that were in the 250 main. All 4 of those guys aboard Honda, starting out with Jeremy Hand, of course, back with his own effort. Valley Automotive Group sponsoring things. He's 2 for 2 to start the year so far. He was inside the top 10 after the first qualifying session, but a bad heat race put him back in the LCQ. Hand took care of business, though. 18th place in the main event. Just behind him, another veteran, John Short, on the number 90, also aboard his own effort. 2 for 2 to start the year once again. And John has plenty of experience at Daytona, a couple 450 main events there as well. This was his 6th start at Daytona total, 4th in the 250 class, 19th for the Texan. And then Phoenix Racing Honda, a much better round overall than Arlington. They only had one guy in the main event, of course, Cullen Park there. Gavin Towers, Evan Ferry back in the main event. Towers started inside the top 15 but had a crash, so he dropped down the order. Ended up 20th overall. Not the result he was looking for, but definitely a step in the right direction after missing his first career main event at Arlington after a perfect qualifying record last year. Then Evan Ferry. I know 21st isn't what he wanted, but he was down in the first corner. He was down, I think, another time in the main event. And Supercross has really been a struggle for Ferry, not so much in terms of speed and pace, but in terms of injuries. He goes out, turns pro at the start of the 2024 season, then gets injured right after his first career race. Doesn't get to show anything his first career race because he was in that massive crash at Detroit, if you remember, a couple years ago, where everybody crashed off the start. It was the infamous Cameron McAdoo letting his nuts hang race. Deegan was in that crash. So many other guys. Evan Ferry got the worst of it and DNF'd from it. Then he gets hurt a week later. Last year, signs with Phoenix Racing Honda, goes out, Anaheim 1, is ripping up front in his heat race, and then all of a sudden, torn Achilles, out for the year. Now Evan, Arlington was a little bit rough for him, but Daytona, home straight race, family was there, and Evan put things together. Little Red Dog, of course, second generation racer, son of former factory Yamaha and Kawasaki racer, former Motocross of Nations winner Tim Ferry, putting the family name back in the main event. Great to see Evan back. Hopefully, we can see him continue to grow and improve. And of course, he's got his health back. That's the most important part. Now, looking a little bit deeper in the field, some news and notes from outside the main event before we shift gears to SMX Next. Bryton Carroll, as I mentioned, so close to 2 straight starts to begin the year, but he just tipped over. I'm sure he's disappointed, but already huge signs of progress after a rough 2025. The Dirt Legal Dirt Bike Depot KTM team down to only 2 riders. Jackson Driscoll messed up his shoulder a little bit, so only Marcus Phelps and Jace Kessler representing the team at Daytona. They were very bright. You could spot them pretty easily. They had some neon 110 racing gear, some blue, some yellow in there. They also had some neon accents on the bike. Phelps was pretty close to the main event picture early on in the LCQ, but it wasn't meant to be. He's looking for another start. I believe both Phelps and Kessler have 2 previous 250 class main event starts under their belts. And then looking at a couple veterans who struggled a bit at Daytona. First of which, Kyle Peters, of course, on his own effort on a Yamaha, put together a great weekend in Arlington, but unfortunately crashed during the LCQ. Not a great weekend for the number 148. Sad to see after a strong performance in the season opener. And then Luke Clout, another guy who returned to the series after a long layoff. Of course, Clout from Australia. He was in the main event last weekend, was caught off the start, didn't get to show his full capability, but then he just has a rotten weekend. Wasn't really in the fight for transfer spots either race. Unfortunate there for the number 101. Moving into SMX Next now, and it was a former factory amateur, the top privateer in Daytona, Jeremy Fapani, doing his own effort this year. Number 2, sticking aboard KTM. 6th place, quiet but solid for the Arizona native. I think that arena cross time, working in the AMA Arena Cross Series, getting some more gate drops and reps in, has helped him grow a little bit this season. Another top 10 for the number 2. Just behind him in 7th, Diesel Thomas for the Munn Racing Husqvarna crew from the Midwest. Diesel made a couple appearances in SMX Next last year, but this was his first Supercross round. Started inside the top 5, lost a couple spots, but settled in 7th place for Diesel, the number 524. I think he's pretty solid, especially on outdoors. Had some really nice motos at Loretta's last year. I think Diesel has some potential and has some talent to make some noise in this class this year. Then 8th place, the third and final privateer inside the top 10. It was Seth Dennis, 2 8th place finishes in a row. Dennis, another Florida native. He's a part of that future MX Yamaha crew. Solid ride for Seth, and he was one of the biggest movers of the night, regardless of class. He was also one of the most consistent. He had the best lap time consistency in the SMX Next division. Then a few guys I'll shout out making their first appearance in the class and I apologize if I butcher some of these names because I don't know these guys too well yet. Will Canagier from the Hunter Racing Kawasaki team, he was out there, 12th place run, not a bad debut for him. Ale Carminati from Mexico was out there, from Mexico City. I heard a lot about this kid. He's excited to get out there, eager to rip any type of motorcycle. 14th place, he's a part of the EBR Performance Yamaha crew. And then Aiden Kiefer, of course. A lot of people know Aiden, the son of Chris Kiefer of Kiefer Inc. Testing. Pulp MX, of course, he's helped do some Racer X bike testing stuff as well. Lil Kiefer out there was running 11th, almost at the top 10, but unfortunately, I believe a clutch issue for the number 47. He dropped back to 17th place. And then I'll briefly shout out as well Ashton Aldman, who we had on the last episode of the Unsung Heroes when the SMX Next crew raced. A little bit of a disappointing result, 19th place, but Ashton got to race under the lights at Daytona for the first time in his career. A pretty cool accomplishment and achievement for the number 480. Moving now to the Premier Class, the 450 division, and what a surprise. Another fantastic night from Joey Savacci. He just keeps continuing to impress, tying his best finish of the season with a 5th place effort. Once again, all day, Joey was ripping from qualifying to his heat race. Great start there. Pushed past Malcolm Stewart and started moving up toward the front and caught Hunter Lawrence a little bit. He was right there behind him if the number 96 made a mistake. Then in the main event, 5th place, solid as a rock. What a year so far for Joey Savacci, and he has been right there in that 5 to 8 range like he has wanted to be for most of the season. He keeps plugging away, putting in fantastic results. I think the Quad Lock team, at least Joey, getting a little bit more support from Honda, which is cool to see. He is putting together a great season, one of the best non-factory seasons I think we've seen in a while. Speaking of great, Shane McElrath, big time improvement. A great run for the number 12. I said the last couple weeks he was starting to move up one spot at a time. He went from 15th to 14th to 13th. I said he was going to get 12th at Daytona. Well, he crushed that. He got 8th place. First top 10 of the year for McElrath. And last year, it seemed like once we started moving east, he started to find a groove, really get into that top 10 consistently. Maybe Daytona is the spark of more for McElrath. He just keeps working diligently, plugging away, and now he has his first top 10 of the year to show for it. Congrats to Shane on that. And just behind him, 3 privateers in the top 10 this week. Of course, some more spots opened up due to factory racers missing time. But I think these guys could have been top 10 even with some of those factory guys on the gate the way they were riding. Justin Hill, 9th place on the Monster Energy Team Tedder KTM. Another solid week for Justin. His second top 10 of the season, 35th of his career, of course, the former 250 divisional champion. And Hill was working his way through the field, moved from 17th to 9th, 8 spots gained during the main event, which is a great result, picking his way through the pack. And he is setting himself up nicely, now 12th in these standings, trying to make the playoffs and clinch an automatic spot for the 3rd time in 4 years. Just behind him, Christian Craig, the 3rd Quad Lock Honda rider, up and down main event. I said in my article, his position chart on the results site looks a little bit like a roller coaster. Started the race up front, top 10 starting position, not bad. Then had a crash, dropped down to 20th, started gaining some more spots, then lost a few. He progressed to the top 10, but as I mentioned, a couple guys got around him. Justin Cooper, of course, was one of them charging from the back of the pack in his crashes. Christian ended the night 13th, but still 9 more points on the board for him. 14th place, Vince Freezy, still 8 for 8. His best run of the year, ISRT Kawasaki. He has so many main event starts, I think around the 130 mark just in the 450 class alone. Vince continuing to plug away, continuing to qualify, get in the show. 15th place on the KMR team, Champion Tool Storage KTM. Grant Harlan, a little bit more at home. He seemed excited talking to Gavin Ayala of Transworld Motocross on press day. Excited for a little bit more outdoorsy conditions. Of course, Daytona is still very much a supercross, but a little more elements of the outdoor series. And Grant Harlan, fantastic rider outdoors. 15th place is best run of the year at Daytona. No surprise there. Great to see Grant Harlan back ripping, and he should be a contender to watch for when we go outdoors. He's looking for that 30th main event start in a couple weeks. If he qualifies at Indianapolis, that will be number 30 of his 450 Supercross career. Of course, he moved up to the Premier class in the 2023 season of Supercross. Missed some time in 24 due to injuries. But Grant Harlan, solid as usual. 16th place on the Heartbeat Hot Sauce Nano Extreme Yamaha powered by Tylube Team Solitaire. Cole Thompson, this may be hard to believe. Of course, a veteran, turned pro around 2011 or so. But Cole Thompson, Daytona marked his first career 450 AMA Supercross main event. Hard to believe a guy who's been racing here in the States for almost 15 years just now qualified for a 450 main event. 16th place for Cole in his first 450 start. Another guy who's got to check something off the bucket list this weekend. Behind him, 18th position, Freddie Noren on the Gizmo Racing Yamaha, finally back in the main event for Fast Freddie, the Swede, of course. Another guy who loves outdoor condition. He's more of an outdoor specialist. But this is also the time of year I mentioned with Shane McElrath, where he starts to improve. I think Freddie as well. Once he really gets over to this East Coast, he starts to improve a little bit more. He likes the ruts. He's not scared of these beat-up racetracks. Freddie went out there Saturday night, put it back in the main event. Second start of the year, 18th place for the number 63. 19th place, another Yamaha guy. Tristan Lane has started to reel off some main event starts in a row, and for the first time, the Florida native qualifies at Daytona. Of course, part of the McGinley Clinic privateer support program. Tristan, a great night, and he was on track and got to revel in some of that when the folks were rushing. Yes, the race was over. He was starting to pull toward the pits, but the fans were on the track, and he was celebrating a little bit with them, amping them up even more, throwing a jersey out to them. Tristan was around his people. He was very stoked with his weekend. 20th place, Money Mitch. A little bit of a disappointing finish for Mitchell Harrison this week, but he was in the main event still on the Partzilla Rocket Blaster Power PRMX Kawasaki. Of course, Callis running an incredible gear set as a lifelong NASCAR fan growing up watching the sport. The Dale Earnhardt GM Goodwrench Fire Suit was the inspiration, and they nailed it, crushed it. Callis, amazing tribute to the Intimidator. Mitchell Harrison, 8 for 8, 20th overall. Then 21st place. We are back with another interview on this week's Unsung Heroes. Daytona Supercross just wrapped up, and we are speaking with one of the 450 class main event qualifiers from the McGinley Clinic Privateer Support Program aboard a Husqvarna. His first main event of the year, first main event start since Arlington a year ago. He's back in the mix, and of course, he's a Florida boy living in the Sunshine State, so he had to be stoked to put her in the main at Daytona. Please welcome Scott Meshey back to the Unsung Heroes. What's up, man? Congrats on your first main event of the year. And I could tell immediately from crossing the finish line, I could see how pumped up you were on the TV.
Hey man, yeah, dude. I will tell you that, to add another layer to it, that was my first ever Daytona main. So that was absolutely phenomenal. Daytona has always been a place that's been like insanely special to me. Even like, growing up watching the Daytona Supercross, like I've always seen that as like literally the crown jewel. Like that's like the Supercross, like the most badass Supercross of all time. And yeah, dude, that was super amazing, and I was absolutely just freaking stoked to not. There's no there's no easy way to describe it. That's for sure.
Go ahead and take us through your day a little bit. Of course, the track, there was some rain in the forecast for a little bit, but nothing happened. Friday rained a little bit, but the track was pretty prime condition. No rain really got anywhere, messed things up. But take me through your day, qualifying, heat race, LCQ, I mean, what an epic battle you had with Justin Starling, another Florida boy in there. You guys put on an absolute show during the 450 LCQ. Very entertaining to watch. I was starting to get a little bit of Weston Pike, Bobby Canary flashbacks from their drag race to the finish line years ago. But take me through your day, how you got in the main event, that battle with Justin Starling, and the main event didn't exactly end how you wanted it to, but you got in there and got your first point of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I will say that obviously, the entire time from Arlington, the whole week, just watching the forecast and, seeing it change all day long, it definitely, I was nervous, man. I was nervous that it was going to be kind of crappy conditions, to be completely honest. And, you know, uh, man, God and the Dirtworks crew, those guys must have been having a heck of a collaboration going because the track was just absolutely phenomenal. And I feel like the guys at Dirtworks really did an awesome job with the build of the track. And honestly, for how Daytona realistically breaks down, I felt like it was a really awesome, combination of Supercross inside of a speedway. And it didn't feel super sketchy. It didn't feel, super crazy. It just felt like everything really fit, in my own opinion. And yeah, so that was absolutely awesome. Obviously, being able to sleep in my own bed to start is always a good place to be. And yeah, man. I mean, qualifying was pretty solid. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure where I ended up overall. I think maybe 25th or 26th. If I'll be honest, I really just do not remember because the day was such a blur. But it was really solid. I mean, I work for Twin Air and have been just pretty much racing on the weekends and not really haven't really practiced between the rounds. So that has been a little bit of a change that's kind of happened over the past couple weeks. But that has really kept me excited to be on the track and just really excited for the race themselves, the races themselves. And so it was, yeah, dude. I mean, just felt really good on the track from the start. And Q2, the track had already started kind of like shaping up pretty well and drying out a little bit. It was a little wet in the morning, but overall felt really good, felt solid. And just carried that momentum into the heat race. I didn't really get a good jump in either the heat race or the LCQ, but just navigated things correctly. And I was in position in the heat race, but uh, kind of jumped off to the inside of the track during the heat race, landed on a tough block, kind of got a little out of sorts, and was off track and lost a bunch of positions. LCQ came around and I was as focused and as ready as ever. I was not willing to give up not even a single inch. And like I said, it was hard fought. It wasn't like I got a phenomenal start and just rode up front the whole time. Like I had to fight my way up. I think I was 10th when I came through the first corner, and yeah, just focused forward, fought forward, and yeah, Justin and I had one hell of a battle the entire race, and honestly, it felt like a game of chess, to be honest. Obviously, he's a extremely experienced and skilled guy, and I knew that, and I was really thankful that we were able to keep it clean on each other, and but it definitely felt like a battle of the wits, and just coming down to who was going to come out on top when it came to positioning on the track and speed and skill, and who made a mistake versus who didn't. And yeah, I just think that it was such a truly unique race. It was definitely of any main event I've gotten into, it was certainly the hardest fought. And honestly, man, that just made it so much more special. Just being able to really truly fight for it. And obviously, I respect Justin as a racer, and he's a great rider. And so yeah, it was pure battle. And yeah, the Weston Pike Bobby Canara, that's a good definitely a good comparison because that's to me that's how it felt. So, that was just really really awesome. So I was just super pumped for that. But yeah, I mean the main event came around and I mean, dude, just what an experience. Obviously, just my main thing was to just be comfortable, put laps in, and really just truly enjoy it out there, and just kind of take the race as it came to me. And so that was the focus. That's what I did. But yeah, unfortunately, had a little bit of mechanical issue and rear wheel locked up over a small double, the section after the whoops and the triple, and shut the bike off, going up the face of a small double, and took a nice trip to Indonesia. So it was not exactly ideal, but it's okay. We came away from it in one piece. Very thankful to be in one piece. Obviously, I'm really bummed that I didn't get to ride all the laps and fully experience the Daytona main. But more than anything, like, just, God protected me from being any more hurt than I was. I mean, thankfully, I'm just sore, and honestly, I feel pretty good already today, Monday. So that's super positive, and I'm really excited. Going forward. Obviously, I've been knocking on the door of main events. I know that I can be in main events, and I definitely just proved to myself that I could do it at, arguably probably the hardest race of the year to do it. So that's super amazing, and I always have really great vibes at Indy. And I made my first ever 250 main and my first ever 450 main at Indy. So I always look forward to racing there, and just really looking forward to following up on that in a really positive way, and get another really fight for another main event before this weekend off.
I was about to mention that, so it's awesome that you brought it up. That you talk about matching wits with Justin Starling, and that's a guy who has over 100 main event starts combined in the classes throughout his career, and you were able to get up there with a veteran who's been racing all kind of guys throughout the years, and to outwit him, to outmatch him, and then get into that main event. You mentioned Indy is such a great venue for you in the past. First 250 start, first 450 start. What is it about Indianapolis that things just go so well for you? I know everybody has their stadium, it seems like, or track. Of course, you look at Eli Tomac dominating in the 450 class. Seems like Daytona wanted a piece of him after the main event and stuff was over. But it seems like everybody out there, for whatever reason, has a track or a stadium that just fits them a little bit better than some of the others. So for you, what is it about Lucas Oil Stadium, about that dirt in Indianapolis, that really gets you going and gets you fired up and in position to make these main events?
Honestly, that's a really good question. I don't really know what it is about Indy in particular, but man, the vibes are always there. The vibes are always good at Indy, and I don't know. I think I just really gel with the track always gets super technical, and really gets tough with how soft the dirt is, and there's always a ton of ruts, and it makes it super challenging. And to be honest, there's times that I just really gel with that, and for whatever reason at Indianapolis, that's something that I seem to rise to the occasion of. It's really funny because I've definitely had, times where like in qualifying, I just feel absolutely terrible. And then I go out in the heat race and then the LCQ, and it's like, the light switch happens and you kind of just turn the brain off and go. And that's the best way I can describe it. As somebody that is, a thinker, sometimes that works against me, sometimes that really helps me. And for whatever reason at Indy, most times during the races, I'm able to really kind of find a good balance. And yeah, I think it's just an overall positive feeling. And having success at Indy before always leads to a positive feeling going into that race. And so it's racing is very largely mental, and I feel like mentally I'm always super positive at Indy.
Another thing, talking about positives, I know when we spoke at Anaheim 1 when I was out there, you went back to the Husqvarna this year. Of course, most of the success on your career has been aboard the Husky. As you mentioned, those starts at Indianapolis, your first career starts, your first points, you scored a national number on the Husqvarna. A lot of success, and of course, the last couple years you were on a KTM, so pretty familiar bike, but not quite the same. And I know a lot of people like to point out the similarities between the KTM, the Gas, the Husqvarna, and say, oh, it's a white KTM, or as I like to joke, the red Husqvarna. But for you now moving back to the Husqvarna, how many changes were you able to notice between the machines? Because obviously, yes, they're owned by the same company, but there are definitely going to be little nuances. And I know everybody likes to kind of make fun of where there's such similar bikes, but how many details have you been able to pick up on now that you are back with the Husqvarna bike after spending a couple years on Orange?
Yeah, I mean that's actually a really great question. I really do believe that there are, the differences that are there are ones that I can definitely feel. Um, Obviously, riding Supercross, I feel like differences in bikes is really exaggerated. On an outdoor track with, suspension that's a little bit softer, a little more forgiving, you might not notice it necessarily as much. But obviously on Supercross, the suspension's super stiff. So there's, noticeable differences. Like for example, the Husqvarna forks, they are actually 10 mil shorter. So, you actually have a little bit of a kind of a squattier bike all around. I believe the shock, or it must be the swing arm and the linkage, packages. I believe allows the bike to be lower in the rear as well. Don't quote me on that for all the technical people out there, but I know that there is those differences, and so those differences show, and they definitely are felt on the bike. In Supercross, where the suspension is super stiff, and so you're relying on a lot of other things for feel in the bike. You definitely can tell the difference. Obviously, that composite subframe, it kind of absorbs things a little bit more than the aluminum subframe, the full aluminum subframe on the KTM. Obviously, it's a little bit more rigid. And so I feel like obviously the energy transfer between different materials is going to be felt different, whether it's coming up short on a jump or even just trying to get a good seat bounce. And then obviously, with the different ride height and just overall kind of geometry of the bike and how the physics work, it feels different in the whoops, and just kind of overall maneuverability, kind of like, the maneuverability and center of gravity, I would say, for the bike for handling overall. And so you have to kind of adjust, your overall suspension setup, and your overall kind of like how you run your sag, where you run your fork height at, all those kinds of things. They are different from the KTM. Obviously, it's similar. We all know it's similar. And yes, there are plenty of times that I order Husky parts, but it's KTM part number. And, obviously, we're aware that there are those differences, and they definitely do come out in Supercross. It's definitely, even when I first got back on the Husky, I did feel a difference when I was riding a little bit of outdoors. Um, and truly, I just have to say that I'm a fan of the Husky, man. And obviously, I love a good, clean bike. So, the white and black is a favorite look of mine. And so, I've just really enjoyed being back on a bike that I truly love, even if everybody wants to say that it's basically the same. And I won't totally argue it, but there's definitely differences when you're pushing the bike as hard as I am, and you're searching for, you know, small differences and small improvements. um, you will feel the differences at that level. And yeah, just what it's an amazing bike, and obviously having success on it before, that makes you feel more confident in having future success.
That's pretty interesting to me because I've always known that there has got to be some slight differences, but hearing you talk through that, I think was pretty cool to see how every single bike has little tiny differences, even if they're very similar. But moving to your team, your operation, of course, you're back with the privateer support program, and I saw a clip after you qualified for the main event in the LCQ. It seemed like the whole crew was very stoked for you. Of course, Tristan Lane was your teammate last year. Jared Lesher's back with the team. He was your teammate a year ago. A lot of the core guys are back together at that team. Austin Kozad, JR, some of the riders, very similar lineup from last year, but working with them, it seemed like they were all so stoked for you. And putting two bikes in the main event, I think that's the first time in the 450 class your operation has done that. I could be wrong there, but for you guys, the morale, working with each other every weekend, now you have another year under your belt working with everybody. Talk about growing together with some of them. Of course, everybody's focused on their own race, but how cool is it to be able to come back to the truck, or in this case, the garage area, and see everybody clapping and high fiving, and everybody stoked to see you back in that main event picture?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super rare, honestly, the camaraderie that we have, within our group. And yeah, we have a lot of the same guys back, and I think that's truly a testament to, just overall the environment that we have, um, just as a, you know, as a setup, for a team setup, and then obviously for the riders themselves, just as a group. The vibes are always there, man, and we're always, excited to be there and having a good time, and able to joke around and genuinely have fun there at the races. We have a lot of the same guys back, and then we have a couple of new guys, including Ashton Aruda and Zach Williams, and just really solid guys, really solid, good people. And that makes a huge difference. Obviously, everybody, wants to be in the main, everybody wants to have their success. But to be honest, at the end of the day, I think that, we can all look at it, you know, with perspective of, being pumped for another rider to have success, just as a person. So, obviously, I think that that's insanely rare. The camaraderie that we have, but yeah, I mean, I obviously, I was bummed to not make the main event last weekend out in Arlington, but man, I was also absolutely, truly bummed for Zach, being so close. So we all want to see each other succeed. Obviously, we all want to have our own success. But yeah, I just think that that's a testimony to, overall, bringing back most of the same guys, and then just kind of adding even more good dudes. That it's a really solid program, and it's a solid program full of solid people. And we seem to have things together pretty well. And yeah, just super thankful for a great group of guys.
One last question for you, relating once again to that camaraderie and personal aspect of it. Of course, your fiance Ashley is with you every step of the way, holding the pit board out there, cheering you on from the side of the track, getting you motivated. And of course, it's an interesting dynamic because you think of the sport, you think everybody has a mechanic, and usually it's a guy from the team, or sometimes it's somebody's father. Occasionally, I think of Freddie Noren in the past with his wife Amy when she was helping him out. But you guys have such a cool dynamic there where it is a couple where you're on the track, she's holding the pit board, and you guys, of course, doing everything together. All the highs, all the lows, you were there to support each other. What is it like having each other there to support when days are rough, whether days are great? Of course, Daytona, I saw all the videos. You guys were over the moon. And I know last year at Arlington as well. To have somebody like that in your corner through all the highs and lows, what does that mean to you?
Well, obviously, I'm extremely grateful that the person that I love is always there with me for, both the highs and the lows. And just to be able to share, all of those races and all the amazing places that we get to be, all the places we get to go to, all the experiences that we get to have, it's something to be truly thankful for. And to be honest, that's an amazing part of racing, uh, that have I just appreciate every single piece of it. Even when I don't have a great race, I still have the person that, I care about more than anything in the whole world there to support me and have my back. And honestly, man, that is truly worth more than anything. And it's really amazing to know that, I can always count on her to have my back. And Obviously she's going to push me and encourage me to do my best and be my best. But at the end of the day, I know that even if I don't race my best, or if I don't have a great race, that she's still going to be there to support me and have my back and help me to be better next time. And obviously, she's a hell of a great wrench. She handles bike stuff all day long and doesn't really like to let me work on the bike. Obviously, she's been super into learning about the bike and being able to take care of it so that way I'm able to actually chill out or to be able to go and interact with fans. And that's a huge blessing, and it definitely deepens the relationship, but it also just deepens the experience at every single race. And yeah, it just adds to just the overall experience of the weekend, and it's really truly something amazing.
Before we conclude today's interview, feel free to give a shout out, plug some of your sponsors who support you, help you keep that dream alive going to the racetrack. Also, feel free to plug some of your social media stuff as well so people can find you and follow your journey throughout the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Well, all my socials are Scott.Meshey. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and on YouTube. And obviously, just have to make sure that I give the thanks where it really needs to be, and that's obviously just thanking God for keeping me safe and just blessing me with a great evening. But of course, there's a lot of amazing people that make it possible for me to do what I do. So big shout out. I have a good list for you. So the obviously the McGinley Privateer Support Program, McGinley Clinic, those guys are really awesome, and Dr. McGinley's super supportive. Motomenum, please use the code Meshi26 for 10% off your order. Motomenum, really awesome, great people. Shot Race Gear, Watkins Lighting and Sign, DNX Show, NNN Man, Net Lease Investments, Revel Golf Cars, Tom's on Racing, TZR Suspension, Adept Graphics, Silverback Racer for the amazing powder coat job on the frame. Dunlop, FMF, Asherby's, Ride Engineering, Dirt Tricks, Pro Carbon, Twin Air, RK Excel, Braking, ASV, Works Connection, Race Tech, Guts Racing, W, and once again, my amazing fiance and mechanic.
Thank you so much for the time today. This has been Scott Meshey on the Daytona edition of the Unsung Heroes in 2026. Scott, thank you once again for the time. Best of luck this weekend at Indianapolis and throughout the rest of the season.
I appreciate it very much, man. Look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you once again to Scott Meshey for his time on the Unsung Heroes this week. And now we'll conclude today's episode with news and notes from outside of the 450 class main event. Justin Starling, what a show he put on along with Scott Meshey for that final transfer spot in the LCQ. The second race back in action. Unfortunately, he was one spot shy of the main event. Of course, another Florida boy, Starling, but he is getting closer and closer back to his usual range inside the top 22 and the main event. Looking back a little bit further in the LCQ, shout out to Aiden Shive, of course, a 250 West regular this year for the HBI Racing crew on a KTM. He raced his 250 West machine. He was out there on a KTM 250 and gave it a valiant effort. Solid all day. Wasn't quite right there for that main event battle, but he was pretty solid. Aiden Shive, I think, was pretty impressive considering he was a little bit down on power compared to some of these other racers, and it was his first time attempting a 450 Supercross to my knowledge. Speaking of 250s, Jared Lesher, another one of the McGinley Clinic Privateer Support Program guys, this was his first round of the season, and of course, Lesher back on a two-stroke once again. Love to hear the noise, love to see the smoke, keeping two strokes in the professional racing scene. Jared Lesher, the number 412 Pennsylvania native, back in the mix, back at the track. Always great to see and to hear. And another one of the coolest nuggets from Daytona. I know it was talked about on the broadcast and on social media. 45-year-old Bobby Fitch returned, a guy who had earned national numbers in the past, privateer who competed in several nationals throughout his career, put in some solid results throughout, but now he is making his first start, or first attempt, I should say, in professional supercross since 2018 at Atlanta, I believe the stat said. But he was back on a Yamaha running number 676. He's got results all over the place on Racer X under like 3 different names, but Fitch was scoring points and he attempted to qualify for the main event. Unfortunately, missed it. And the funniest part about the night was the fact that Bobby was a part of a father son duo, a very rare thing to see in professional motocross. Bobby Fitch out there in the 450 class competing, McCaden Fitch, his son, on the Altus Motorsports Blue Crew Yamaha team and SMX Next. Unfortunately, McCaden went down in the first corner, wasn't able to show his full potential, but a really cool moment to see both father and son competing in the same night on the same track. Don't know how many times we'll ever see that. Awesome night for the Fitch family. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Unsung Heroes. Once again, shout out to Scott Meshey for his time on the interview segment of this week's episode. I am Trey Stire, your host. We will see you back after Indianapolis. Have a great week, everybody.